One of the central points for the Brexiteers during the 2016 Brexit referendum was the fact that once we left the European Union, we were going to get this absolutely amazing trade deal from the USA that was going to make staying in the single union, staying in the single union, staying in the customs union and single market look absolutely foolish. Now, of course, they never actually laid out what it was exactly they were going to do in this trade deal. And as of course, we've laid it out pretty clearly before. Any trade deal done with the USA, at least any, one that they would talk about, would basically mean us, the UK, giving up sovereignty so that we could have far greater and deeper access to the US markets than, well, we would currently, shall we say, enjoy. But of course, that means having to give up a lot of stuff. We've already seen the huge backlash, of course, over chlorinated chicken, hormone injected beef, several other various things, a whole raft of things giving into sort of like, venture capitalism and US companies just being able to swoop in, buy up a British company and then just buy it and sell, buy it, well, buy it, profit, and then destroy it because it's taking out a potential competitor. We've seen this already, of course, with the ARM chips and NVIDIA attempting to buy a British, very well-known British good company. At the moment, that has sort of been seen off. And what should happen is the government should buy a controlling stake in that company, especially something like that, which is really important to this country. Probably something the government should definitely do. But of course, it's a Conservative government. They're not interested in doing, shall we say, good things, or at least sensible things to do with the economy. But of course, back to this whole deal, because Trevelyan has been making the rounds, of course, in the US, and bizarrely, not talking to just things like the American, Department of Trade, who would ultimately be responsible for signing off on that trade deals. No, her and the Brexiteers have said that they've been going around all these different states to try and do individual trade deals with these states, which again isn't possible because that's not how America works. That's not how trade deals in itself works. Yorkshire can't simultaneously just go and decide to do a trade deal, I don't know, with Cuba. We can't just go and do that. Again, that's not how the UK works. It's not how international trade works either. But of course, there are, of course, deeper, far more interesting things at play here, with workers' rights certainly being very, very much on the table. And of course, our worker rights currently here in the UK are a lot stronger and get far, far more stuff, or British workers get far, far more stuff than American workers almost certainly do. So this could cause a huge uproar if this starts to come through. Because trust me, British workers are not going to be happy if they start losing their rights due to a trade deal. And it will almost certainly very much upset those Brexit backers up in like the north of England who voted for Brexit, telling them that they would be able to get stronger worker rights. So let's go diving into this then, shall we? So before we begin, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page and an donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So this comes from The Guardian with the title of Britain's hopes of a post-Brexit US trade deal depend on workers' rights. Britain's hopes of a favourable post-Brexit trade deal with the US risk being undermined by the government's lack of endangerment on workers' rights, trade unions have warned. As a second round of US-UK talks begin this week, union leaders from both countries have said that Washington would push for a workers-centred approach to trade to help unlock a deal. accusing Boris Johnson's government of failing to actually grasp the importance of labour rights. The TUC, the ALFC, the ICO, and the biggest union federations in the UK and the US have said a change of track was urgently required. It comes as ministers now push to build new ties with the world after leaving the EU, with a US trade deal being considered the prize target for the government as it attempts to try and demonstrate the benefits of Brexit. After opening up a dialogue, of course, of the future Atlantic trade last month in Baltimore, talks have resumed this week in Aberdeen and London between the UK and US Trade Secretary Anne-Marie Trevelyan and Catherine Tai, the US Trade Representative. At the first round of meetings, Trevelyan pledged that she would strengthen the protection of labour rights and the environment and tackle forced labour globally. However, the US and UK union leaders have said that the British government has too often hurled straight into the details of unsavoury regimes with having no respect for the fundamental human and labour rights. The government has promised a role for union representatives in powerful post-Brexit trade advisory groups, which are consulted on negotiations. However, the TUC has warned its nominees for its posts have not even been confirmed by ministers, meaning that unions did not even have a place at these talks. In a joint statement, the first two groups representing more than 17 million workers called on the US and UK governments to work together to protect employment standards. Francis O'Grady, the General Secretary of the TUC, said that the UK government had been rushed into post-Brexit negotiations with countries that readily abuse and fundamental human rights and labour rights, such as Colombia and Turkey. Trade deals can lift labour standards, promote decent work, and reduce inequality around the world. But the UK government has agreed to too many deals that leave working people worse off, he said. Enough is enough. It's time for a truly worker-centered trade approach. That means meaningfully consulting with trade unions and acting on our concerns. Then only is the US government likely to actually consider closer ties with the UK. Eric Gockwind, the trade policy specialist at the AFL-CIO, said that for too long, voices of the working people had been shut out of trade negotiations or discussions. We need the TUC and its unions at the table to shape a fair agreement that lifts wages and standards on both sides of the Atlantic. The group said that under Joe Biden's administration, the US had increasingly involved protections for workers' rights in trade negotiations in recent years, including the latest US, Mexico, and Canada agreement. The leaders said, oh dear, the leaders said that as a result of trade unions' involvement in the USMCA negotiation, the agreement contains one of the strongest labour rights enforcement other chapters have ever agreed, and possibly for sanctions to be introduced against companies that are abusing workers' rights. The Department for International Trade and the spokesperson said that trade unions attend the first UK-US trade dialogue in Baltimore last month, and tomorrow the TUC General Secretary is speaking in a plenary session of the second dialogue, which we're hosting in Aberdeen. The UK has a strong trading relationship with the US, worth over 200 billion a year. And although our joint trade dialogues can deliver a broader and even more ambitious trade agenda, we are committed to trying listening to trade unions on a wide range of voices to ensure that our trade policies deliver for the whole of the UK. And of course, let's put this in very clear terms. The last thing any Brexiteer wants to do is give trade unions more power. Because the Brexiteers have been very, very clear, going all the way back to Britannia Unchained. According to the Brexiteers, they think that the average British worker is lazy because they are so protected by worker rights. What makes you think that pretty much all the writers of that book, who are, again, ardent Brexiteers who now sit on the front bench, are going to protect your worker rights in a potential US trade deal, which could very easily weaken our worker rights over here? This is incredibly worrying going forward. And as I've said, currently, the UK enjoys some very, very good worker rights because, again, partly because of our EU membership. And we could have better worker rights. Remember, the Brexiteers and all the Conservatives who champion Brexit have said, oh, now we're out of the EU, we can have even stronger worker protection and rights. But they have been absolutely silent on what increasing those protections would actually look like and what they want to do. That's because they want to do the exact opposite. They want to remove some of these rights under the guise of, really, we're giving workers their freedom back. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is something we are going to have to watch like a hawk. Because I've said this, it's exactly the same with regulations. The chemical regulations have been weakened, and almost no one is talking about how those weakened regulations are going to cause problems further down the line, and how bad it is those chemical regulations got weakened and what it actually does. Like I say, I did an entire video on that, so go check that out. But needless to say, we have to be careful and we have to pay attention to just what is going on. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.